Well, it's been a tough week on the cattle farm. We had our favorite cow, or my favorite cow, Friday night of last week, gave birth to a calf that was not alive. Really no explanation for what happened. It's a real disappointment. She was due in about 3.5 weeks. This was a fully developed calf. Really no explanation for what happened. We did have the vet come out and check her out to make sure that she wasn't retaining placenta, getting started with a uterine infection or anything. She's fine. We gave her a little antibiotic just as a precautionary for the next week, just to make sure that she doesn't develop an infection. But anyway, calving season is just around the corner. It might be closer than we think. Some of these cows are starting to show signs that it might be coming. So I've got the barn ready. Let me show you what I mean. We had been bedding the cows down out here in the lot, but I cleaned this up down to cement, and we're bedding them down inside the barn now. They're coming in here to lay down. We've got 2 maternity pens set up against the wall here with clean, fresh bedding in there, and we've got the cows fenced out of them so that that bedding stays really clean and really fluffy and fresh. And then if we have one that looks imminent or that actually has a calf, we can just open one of those pens and run them in there, and they've got a nice, really clean place to take care of that new calf. Okay, 92, I'm sorry. You're my favorite cow too. You're both my favorite cows. You aren't my favorite cow, but you're a good mother. You do a good job. She tends to want to chase you once in a while when she gets close to having a calf or just has a calf. She's one that you got to keep your eyes on. Anyway, 92 here is maybe going to be the first cow to have a calf. She's starting to develop an udder, you can see under there. We've got another one that I think is pretty close. Miss 177 right here. Hey there, thanks for turning down my road. If this is your first time here, my name's Carl. My little brother and I both work for local farmers full time, but we both also farm together with our cattle herd and our hay operation. Everybody's involved, from the smallest to the biggest. If you don't have the joy of farming yourself, I'd love to help you experience it through this channel. Whatever your background, you found the right place. This is Dodge Brothers Farm and Ranch. So since we don't really know what caused this cow to lose her calf at the last second, there's a whole bunch of things that it could have been, and diagnostics in this case is pretty tough. Pretty rarely ever turns up any type of a result. So for that reason, we're doing really the only thing that we can do. We're running the herd on tetracycline in the water right now. So I've got the premix mixed up right here in a bucket, and I'm putting it in the tank. We're gonna run them on that for 5 days, just as a precautionary, just in case it was something bacterial. Lepto comes to mind. They were vaccinated against that, but vaccines aren't 100% effective. It probably wasn't that, but if it was, it's really the only thing that we can do about it. So, here we go. I've got this tool to make sure that I'm stirring it at the appropriate level. So we've finished feeding all of the first crop hay, and I'm just about to open up the first bale from the second cutting. Now if you look at this, watch when I take the net wrap off, the whole bottom of the bale just fell off with the net wrap. And I got to thinking, when we baled this hay in the summer, the hay was really short. It didn't grow back very tall, and so it's just so nice and soft and short-stemmed that it can't even hold itself together in a round bale because the stems weren't long enough to wrap together very well. The cows are gonna love this stuff. Okay, another thing this old Oliver tractor has not had working in a long time is lights. There hasn't been a single light working on the tractor in years. So I'm hoping I can just replace the switch. It's kind of a weird switch. I'm not gonna get the original Oliver style of switch. I'm just gonna install 2 switches so that I can control the back lights independently from the front lights, assuming that all the wiring and lights are still good. We'll see. Okay, I'm gonna remove the old switch and see if the wiring and the lights are any good by just using a jumper wire like this with alligator clips to jump power from the key switch over to where the lights hook up. Okay, I got the switch out, so I'm gonna do a little checking here. All right, we got headlights. Okay, the back light seems to be burnt out. But the red light for going down the road is still working. So I'm just gonna put a couple new switches in and put a new bulb in the back, and we'll be all set. All right, test run time. That is awesome. The light switches work. The rear road light and floodlight both work independently, so that's great. All right, check this out. Got the new tie rods installed on the Oliver here. They're really nice. I was gonna buy just new ends to put on here where it attaches to the steering arm and where it attaches to the spindle. However, when I priced the ends for the tie rods, it was only like another $15 to buy the entire tie rod instead of just buying the ends. And I was pretty sure I was gonna have trouble getting the old ones apart anyway, so I just went with brand new ones. The other cool thing about these is if you look right here, they have a grease fitting on each end of them, so they are greasable. These tie rod ends are gonna last a lot longer than those last ones as long as we keep grease in them. And the last ones were still painted green, so these should outlast the tractor, as long as the rubber boots stay intact and we keep greasing them. Okay, come over here and take a look. I got the new hydraulic valve, the new, to us, but used previously hydraulic valve, mounted up on the fender of the tractor. I got it all plumbed in with new hoses to run the loader, and I've got it plumbed into the hydraulic unit underneath the seat. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that in just a second. That was an absolute nightmare. I didn't video any of the plumbing project because my hands were pretty well covered in hydraulic oil and dirt and grime the whole time. I didn't want to have to clean my hands up every few seconds to move the cameras around. And it was pretty boring anyway. I was really just screwing the old hoses out of the fittings and screwing the new hoses in. So previously, the way this was set up was the loader hoses just came back and were plugged in to the hydraulic remotes, meaning we would use the hydraulic levers like this one and this one on the tractor to operate the loader. I wanted to get away from that because I didn't like how jerky the tractor hydraulics were, and I wanted to have a separate control valve to run the loader so that we could still have these back remotes available to hook hay rakes, hay tedders, and things like that up to without having to unhook the loader. The way this works with an Oliver 50 series tractor is you just plumb a hose or a fitting coming out of the hydraulic housing, and this is your pressure line that goes to your valve, and then there's a return line coming from the valve back here to dump the used hydraulic oil back into the hydraulic reservoir to get pumped back through again and filtered. That should have been an easy project, but there was a 1/2-inch plug right here and a 1/2-inch plug right back here that I absolutely could not get to come out no matter what I did. So this is what the plugs look like. They're a 1/2-inch pipe plug with a square hole in them, and the idea is that you're supposed to just be able to put a 3/8 ratchet extension right into the plug and just turn it right out. But these plugs had been in there for over 50 years, and it didn't matter how long I soaked them in penetrating oil and how much pressure I exerted on them, they were not moving. The very first thing I did was use a 3/8 adapter on the impact wrench, and I just broke the 3/8 adapter right off. So I ended up making this tool that I made out of a big bolt, and I just ground the end down to a solid 3/8 square to fit into the plugs. And I tried welding these right into the plugs, and I thought I could get them out that way, but I couldn't weld enough around two edges of it that I could reach with the stick welder to keep it from just breaking away right when I put the impact wrench on it. So the way I ended up getting these out was I took the acetylene torch and heated the center of these plugs up fairly hot, and then I put the impact tool in, put the big air impact wrench on it, and backed them out. Some people had suggested that I should just drill the plugs out and retap the threads in the housing, but I knew if I did that, I'd get a whole bunch of metal shavings down in the oil galleys that I wouldn't be able to clean out, and that's a great way to ruin your pretty much new hydraulic pump by getting metal shavings run through it. I was not thrilled about the idea of using the acetylene torch on the hydraulic housing, but that was the only way to get it done, and I was able to just contain most of the heat in the plugs. I didn't get any footage of doing this because I didn't have anybody around to help me operate cameras, and I was completely focused on doing the job as efficiently and quickly and safely as possible to try to avoid putting too much heat on the hydraulic housing and to try to avoid catching anything on fire. So I had to work quickly. I didn't have time to move cameras around and stuff like that, but that is how I got those stubborn plugs out. It's pretty hard to beat an acetylene torch. It'll pretty much always win. Wow, that's good. Okay, that's awesome. So happy the loader works. The two rear remotes work. This tractor is pretty much done. All I've got left to do is zip tie a couple of these new hoses up and out of the way so they don't get pinched in the hinge points on the loader. Guys, this tractor is way better than it was before. We got working lights. We got brand new tie rods. The whole front end is tightened up. We got new front wheel bearings. We got a new hydraulic control valve for the loader. It works great. We're not gonna have to unhook the loader anymore to run the hay rake or to run a hay tedder with it. I'm super fired up. I'm so glad I got all these improvements done to the tractor before haying season starts this summer. It's gonna be really nice to have it working better. As with any old piece of equipment like this, I could keep this tractor in the shop for another 4 or 5 months, keep doing stuff to it all the time before I had everything fixed on it, but it's way better than it was before. And it is time to be done with this project. This tractor's going back to Dad's this weekend. Next week is maple syrup week. Well, I wouldn't be a farmer if I had everything I need ready to go before I needed it, and I forgot that I ran out of taps last year. So I had to stop at the farm store and pick up a few of these nylon hose barb tees to use as taps until my taps show up, because with our short sap season on these silver maples, I can't afford to miss a good run of sap waiting for my taps to show up. If this 2 or 3 or 4 day run is maybe all we might get, depending on how the year goes. All right. So, if all goes well, we'll be making maple syrup on next week's video. As always, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.